Okay, so this video is the last little piece for the first week I'm out, okay? And so what I want to do is I want to help you get geared up for what you're doing for next week. Now, where I'm moving to is that the practices we've been working on, I want you to start doing those things independently if you're not. Some of you may already be, okay? But if you're not doing something, like when you're reading and it gets into your mind, you know, oh yeah, I remember I could do this, but I don't really want to right now, skip it. Don't do that, right? Do it. Now remember, some of these things we're working on now, and they won't always be part of making your reading process longer. Some of them will, right? So you always have these tools. But the thing is that it's kind of exercising some new muscles, hopefully. And so as you're doing that, I want you to get them into your system. So what's that look like for this week? Well, let's talk about that. You're starting with 5, right? Lesson number 2, demographic luck. Now, hopefully, if you're not familiar right now with the term demographic, you're already thinking, I need to know what demographic means. And I've got some tools to do that. So you can bet that in the videos I make for next week, I'm going to want you to tell me about demographic. And this is a bit of a hard term. Okay? Is it frequent? Yeah, it's frequent. Yes, yes, yes. So you can use this, remember to go to academic text up there, right? Now, how's it used? You're going to find definitions. As I look through here, I see how words, we call this collocate, how words go with it frequently. Demographic information, demographic information, demographic information, right? It does not preserve Israel's demographic Jewish majority. That popped out to me because of the text we're reading. Demographic shift a little bit. Demographic variables. If I go up, I think there was some things. Demographic characteristics. Data, I think, was in there, right? Several times. So look at how demographic is used. I will tell you that there are 2 different definitions, right? They're connected, but in one case you're referring to a specific group of people based on characteristic. In the other case, you're talking about kind of more general descriptions of population. This definition isn't good. You're going to have to go beyond it. Can I Google it? Yes, I can. Okay. A noun and an adjective. All right. So I could talk more about this, but as you're reading, I want you to make sense of it, and specifically how it's used in the text. And it is used in the text. There it is, right? So, so the chapter or the section is really about demographic and demographics. Okay, but a particular demographic. What's that mean? Find out. Okay, and then the word is actually used in context. So if you want to see how it's used, you go up to here right before section 8. Mort Janklow went to Columbia University Law School because demographic trough babies have their pick of selective schools. What's that mean? Okay, you got to find out. So, so as you're reading, I want you to think about all of these things we've been talking about, right? You have lesson 2 and lesson 3. You're going to need to know which bigger themes those lessons from this guy's life, from Flom's life, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. 3 lessons of Joe Flom. So how do these lessons tie into those bigger themes? Okay, that's going to be really important to know. What are the lessons? Okay. And then when you're done reading, you're finishing the chapter. So you had a lesson on demographic luck, and you have one on meaningful work, which also plays into Flom's background. Okay, all these things that go into forming Joe Flom, who's an outlier. Okay. When you're done reading that, you can reflect. remember that Malcolm Gladwell is building a case for things that he thinks are, kind of the ingredients for being an outlier, for being successful. But did he build his case well? So as you're reading, you're thinking about that. Does this make sense to me? What are the other alternatives? What might not be explored here? What might I expect someone would challenge Gladwell with, right? Add those into your notes as you're reading. Also, when you come upon these little visuals, whenever I see a graphic piece or chart or anything, right, I wonder why it's there. What does it mean? Can you explain them in context? That's going to be important. Okay? Remember to stop and explain things to yourself as you're reading. Make those connections. Can you paraphrase? Kaylin, can you teach Sam this next week? Sam, can you teach Kaylin this next week? If I were to give you guys an opportunity to tell somebody else about Joe Flom and his life and what made him an outlier and what Gladwell thinks made him an outlier and how Joe Flom is like or unlike other examples, right? Probably like. What's similar between Joe Flom's experience and Bill Gates' experience, for example. Okay? You should be able to explain these things. So as you're reading, if you run into bumps, stop and do something about it. Okay, what do I do? Well, I might have to reread. I might have to stop and tell myself what's going on. I might have to stop and make connections. Think about, how does this lesson tie into everything I've read before? What is this like? I may have to Google. I may talk to my parents or someone else, right? Build that background knowledge as you're going to help it make sense to you. All right, and also you will have some feedback from me on your writing. So we're still going back to those earlier chapters 3 and 4. You've written for me. I give you feedback. When you have that feedback, revise. That's your other assignment. Have fun. See you next week.